Welcome to PR Powerhouse, helping female entrepreneurs to get in the press and to gain PR. I'm Jo Swan, and I'll be sharing how to harness the power of the media to boost your credibility and business visibility, no matter what stage in business you're at. Because I'm on a mission to show you that PR is not just for the big boys. In this show, you'll learn how to reach out to journalists and own your place in the press, because you are ready to become a PR powerhouse. Hey, and welcome back. Hello. I'm so sorry for the little mini absence over the last couple of weeks, but life got a bit crazy as I kind of decided to cram in a lot of real life stuff for a change. So it kind of got to that point where I was actually involved in loads of real life events over the last few weeks, and it just meant that I've not quite had the chance to record any episodes. So I'm so sorry. I do feel terrible about skipping out the last couple of weeks, but I am back and I'm here to share with you some of the experiences of these events. And I feel kind of overflowing with information that I actually want to share with you. One of the things I'm going to talk to you about today is one of the most recent events that I attended. And this was the incredible Be Inspired. Now, if you follow me on any of the social channels, you will have seen me sharing stories, videos, pictures of this most incredible event. Like, this is honestly one of my most favorite things to do all year. And it's just, oh my God, I don't even know how to describe it and do it justice. It's an event where you literally are just filled with emotion from the moment that you step in the door to the moment that you leave. You absolutely 100% leave with the feeling of more inspiration, motivation, support, community, love, more friends, more of a network, more of a feeling that actually you're really with a group of people that have really got you and you're really in an environment where you can make things happen. It's honestly one of the most special events that I've ever been to. And I'm an absolute honoured to be a part of it. So at these events, we host something called a media panel, and I have the opportunity to bring journalists into the fold and to actually share with the entrepreneurs in the room tips, some advice, straight from the horse's mouth, if you like, of actually what the journalists are looking for, because these events are all around inspiring entrepreneurs, inspiring people with a message, with a story, to get that story out and to share that story, whether it be through speaking, whether it be through PR. So Dani and I work super closely together to really encourage as many people as possible to take up more space. And this is what the theme of Be Inspired was over these 2 days. It was all around taking up more space. And this theme absolutely oozed out of all of the talks of all of the people that stood up there on that stage and shared their story. And there was 22 people doing that. And it was just absolutely incredible. And the vibe of it just couldn't be closer to my heart in terms of how I feel about the power of storytelling, how I feel about how important it is that people stand up and stand behind their message. And every single one of them just really touched my heart. So it's an absolutely incredible event. I will put the link in the show notes because it runs again in September. So I'd absolutely encourage you to come along if you are an entrepreneur or someone who just loves a bit of personal development, self-development, as well as business development. There's so much in there. The subjects are so varied. You really can't you can't really account for what is coming out of that lineup because it is so varied and so diverse. I think that's part of its magic, to be honest. So what I'm going to share with you today is some takeaways from this event, and I'm going to share with you a couple of things. So the first thing I'm going to talk to you about actually is one of the talks from one of the guest speakers, who is a lady called Trina Nicole, and I will talk to you a little bit more about her in a second. And the second thing I'm going to share with you are some of the insights from the media panel, which I hosted, to give you some insights, some really kind of quick takeaway tips in terms of the key things that those journalists shared in terms of what you could be doing and the things that are important to them in terms of how you actually communicate with them and how you use the media to elevate your story. Okay, fab. So let me first start to talk to you about this lovely lady, Trina Nicole. So Trina was a special guest at Be Inspired, and we were super excited to have her to host her because she really is an inspiring lady. And she's someone who has very much put her mark in the sand, very much created opportunities for herself, and very much led the way in lots of things that she's done. So Trina is a body inclusivity champion. She's a dancer. She has actually supported Beyonce, Lizzo, like she's got some pretty cool accolades behind her. She's best known for founding the UK's first plus size dance class, the Curve Catwalk, which she told us all about. And she's been shortlisted as Young Entrepreneur of the Year and also selected as one to watch by Forbes. She's also a Nike Women Ambassador. There's lots and lots of things that really champion and showcase and celebrate this incredible lady. Now, Trina's talk was really interesting because she actually started her talk talking about all of these accolades and sharing some of these achievements with us, and everyone was like, oh my God, yeah, wow, oh my God, wow, she's one impressive lady. And then she asked us, after she'd introduced herself in this way, do you feel like you know me? And everyone was like, yeah, totally. Like, we get who you are. Like, you're super cool. Like, you're smashing it. And then she asked the question again and she went, but do you really know me? And then everyone sort of stopped for a minute and thought. And she was obviously testing us. It was a trick question. And she was basically asking, well, what if I just told you? Like, what does that tell you about me as a person? You don't really know that much about me. You don't know my upbringing, you don't know my circumstances, you don't know my background, you don't know why I created this dance class, you don't know what has led me to be this ambassador. And actually, she put loads and loads of question marks in the audience's mind, which was really interesting. It was a really fab talk. And what she then went on to do was to tell elements of her story. And she started to share more of her background, more of her actual genuine inspiration around why she does what she does and her legacy that she's trying to create, which obviously by the end of it, we were then like, oh my God, you're so right. We didn't know you at all when you just told us about all these accolades. We didn't understand who you were as a person. We didn't understand what was driving you. And now we do understand all of that. Oh my God, we love you even more. So it was one of those experiences where we already really bought into her. But as she developed her talk and she unraveled parts of her life and she let us into the different layers of her story, we just connected with her on a deeper and deeper and deeper level. She started to let us in to elements of her past, of her upbringing, of her journey, and she started to tell us about actually some of the challenges that she'd faced as a larger lady, as somebody who actually stood out for what she believed to be all the wrong reasons in her early years. And she told us how she basically mastered the art of taking up less space. So whilst we were here to talk about taking up more space, she was telling us how she had mastered the art of shrinking herself, because actually she always felt like she stood out too much and it was something that made her really uncomfortable, or that other people made her feel uncomfortable about. So as she started to open up and tell us a little bit about her journey and her challenges, and then about some of her family, and about actually how she has kind of ended up doing what she's doing, and why she created her business, the Curve Catwalk, because she wanted to create an environment where she felt like she could shine, that she didn't have to hide. She wanted to create an environment for others where she could help them live in joy and help have a positive energy, bring a positive energy, and remove some of the hate and the anger that can come and can be targeted around certain people. So she was talking very much about this idea of, she was building her own table and she was deciding that she was going to make a contribution to the wider world based on her own experiences. And the more that we understood this, the more that we understood her, the more that we understood her business, the more that we loved everything that she stood for, and the more that we really connected with her and her personal brand. Now, obviously, this aligns so much with everything that I always say in terms of thinking about your business from a PR perspective and making it human, making it connect on an emotional level, making it make sense to the other people that you need to speak to. Make sure that you are connecting to the people who feel like you feel or who could be feeling like you felt. So the emotion that you are prepared to bring to the party, the vulnerability that you are prepared to share is the thing. It is the thing that gets people connected to your business. And through PR, you are able to communicate this. So Trina has told her story in the press, and through that, people have understood why she does what she does, and they've connected to her business, and she has found all her like-minded people to be her clients. The other thing that I found really interesting in terms of her talk was she was talking very much around actually this idea of what personal branding is and this idea of influence. And she is recognized as an influencer and she accepts that role. And she was trying to break it down for us in terms of explaining actually what she believes influence really is. And I really found this a very interesting definition, because what she was trying to say was it's not necessarily just how much experience you have got. And it's not necessarily just how loud you shout that makes you an influencer. It's the combination of the two things. And how she broke it down was a little equation. So I'm just going to share this with you. So the equation that she was talking about was perception times experience equals influence. Now I'm just going to talk you through how she kind of made sense of this. So she was talking about perception from a perspective of how do you see yourself, how do others see you, and how do you want to be seen? So this idea of building a perception of you and your personal brand effectively is one part of the equation. So how you see yourself and how you perceive your place in the world, actually how others see you and perceive you in the world or in your space, and your awareness, your self-awareness about actually how you want to be seen, how you want to show up, how you want to portray yourself is all part of that package, all a part of that part of the equation. Now, what she was saying next was you then amplify that with your experience. So you amplify that with either your actual qualifications and credentials, or you amplify that with your life experience. And it's the combination of the two things that lead to your influence. And this makes total sense because, again, when we're thinking about it from a PR perspective, we are thinking about it in the same way. We're thinking about it in terms of, okay, so what is it that we're showing up around? What is our message? What is it that we're representing? What is it that we are here to say? What is our mission? What is the thing that we are trying to get behind, that we are really trying to be a voice for? Okay, and what perception are we creating around ourselves that is going to enable us to share that voice? And then in the background is, well, why are we a person that is relevant to speak on this subject? Well, that's our experience. And that experience, like we say, isn't necessarily just qualifications. It's your life experience. It's all the journeys that you've been through. And those two things combined do absolutely equal influence. So I really love that perception, that perspective, that take on this idea of personal branding. And it was something that I just wanted to bring to you because I thought actually she described it in a really quite a different way. And her approach to really bringing her story to life really made the audience think about the power of that, and actually the power of going sort of under the layers and not just spieling out the superficial, these are my accolades, I'm award winning, I've got this, I've got that, and actually being prepared to strip back and to give a bit more of them, because that's why we fell in love with Trina Nicole in her talk, because she was prepared to go beyond those accolades, beyond the big kind of wow statements, media trust tags and awards that she'd won. And actually she was prepared to give us more. She was prepared to give us her. And that's absolutely why we all fell in love with her. So that was a really fabulous way to kind of set the scene and to get people thinking about the power of story. And she left us with some thoughts around the fact that everybody has a story, that everybody has a voice, and that everybody has the opportunity to influence. And I thought that was really, really powerful. So she was asking everyone to really realize that their story matters and to invite people to go out and to take up some space, which was a gorgeous way to end her talk. So my next part of this episode is going to be a way to, I guess, get you a little bit closer to doing that, get you a little bit closer to feeling confident to be able to go out and to take up some space through using the power of the press, using the power of the media. And I'm going to share with you now some of the top tips that came out of our media panel when we asked 2 journalists specifically, actually, what are they looking for from your PR? So, our journalists were made up of a national journalist and a local journalist because I think it's really interesting for you to appreciate the differences and for the audience to be inspired to appreciate the differences of actually what a local and a national journalist look for. So let me start with our lovely national journalist, Lebby. So Lebby writes for a number of different national media, from women's mags to national broadsheets to online media. She does the lot. And she writes very gorgeous articles. She writes very heartfelt articles, very sensitive articles. We've used her many, many times to share the stories of our clients. And this was another thing that was really important to me, to bring friendly journalists, to bring journalists who, get this challenge of actually how entrepreneurs feel, that they really want to get their story out there. Because they want to spread their message, but they're actually a bit scared. They're nervous to approach journalists a lot of the time. And, we wanted to bring someone who felt very approachable and who really genuinely does care about the power of spreading positive messages and positive stories. So Lebby was a fabulous person to be involved. So let me share with you some of the things that she said she was looking for. And this is in response to me asking her, how can entrepreneurs celebrate themselves in the press? So when we were looking at celebration stories, and I asked her, what kind of stories really do appeal? Like, what are the kind of stories that we can share with you that enables you to give these entrepreneurs a platform to really share their message, to really get their message out there? And she talked about how, do you know what? To be honest, the more personal, the better. So she was very, very open and said, when it comes to media from businesses, obviously, as we know, and as I've told you a million times, journalists don't like to write stories about businesses. They like to write stories about people. So this is something that she massively reiterated. And I'm glad that she did. I'm glad it came from the horse's mouth so that everyone in the audience could hear her say that and get that perspective just right and get that perspective just like banged home. Because journalists don't want to write about businesses. They don't want to write about companies. They can't be seen to be being corporate or promotional. As we say, we've got to storytell and not sell. So Lebby was saying the stories that she needs personal stories. So the more personal, the better. And in this respect, we're thinking about your journey. So we're thinking about, what has got you here? What are the ups and downs? What are the highs and lows? How can you sort of chart that journey to explain why you're doing what you're doing, why you are on this mission, and how much of that story are you prepared to share? So things like overcoming adversity, things like changing direction in life, things like, if you have suddenly drastically quit your job, or you've left the corporate world, or you were made redundant, or you were really ill and that was like the pivot moment for why you've set this business up. It's those things that she needs to know. So in terms of how to celebrate what you're doing and champion your mission, there has got to be that little bit of give and take in terms of you being prepared to share the story that has got you to that point. So that was the first thing that she said around celebration stories. The more personal, the better. The second point was a very straightforward one, actually, but she really hammered this home, and it was something that she really, really highlighted that should be a massive priority. And she was talking about the power of pictures. So Lebby said that actually quite often an editor won't commission a piece unless she sees the pictures first, unless the pictures are super, super strong. So this has always been the case, that a picture tells 1,000 words, that a picture makes a fabulous PR piece, and it definitely gives you more column inches. But even more so now, I think as it's getting more competitive and as we're in the online space, those digital platforms need really strong images as well to stand out and to pull the reader in, to get them to actually engage with the content. So she was saying the power of pictures has actually become even more important, and it's really, really key to accompany your piece with some strong imagery. So what she was saying about that was, think about the story that you're trying to tell and make sure that you are visually communicating that story with a number of different images. So make sure that you have got photos that accompany your message and that are visually telling that story. And this is where a brand shoot comes in. This is where the power of personal branding photography comes in, and really kind of curated photography in the sense of you've already thought about the stories that you're going to tell. You've already kind of preconceived the messages, and you have then illustrated visually those messages with your photography. This is where really, really good PR outshines people who have just kind of had a botch at it, had a little go at it. You know, the more professional PR is the PR that actually where it all just ties together beautifully. So the power of pictures was something that Libby really, really, really hammered home. So that's something for you to just be aware of and think about. And the third point that she made was around relevance and timeliness. Now, again, this is something that we know, but something that we're just going to hammer home. So we know that the media need a reason to write about you. And she was kind of taking that from the other side and saying, well, as journalists, they have to write about things that are already happening in the news. So they have to write about things that are current, that are being talked about generally in society, that are on the news agenda. And, you know, they then, as journalists, are given the opportunity to kind of hijack what is already being spoken about and create more content around it. So she was talking about, she was actually using the example of the Will Smith Oscars scenario, and how literally the next day journalists were looking everywhere for people who they could interview who had alopecia, obviously on the back of that situation. So they were looking for case studies to speak out about their experiences, to give their views and their opinions on what happened. She was saying, you know, that is a prime opportunity. If that fits you, and I know that that's a very niche thing, but it's just an example. If that fits you, that is your prime opportunity to speak up and to say, yes, this is me and this is my story. Like, you hijack what is happening already in the news and you reach out to journalists and you be helpful to them when they need to talk about that subject area. So obviously that is something that isn't going to apply to everybody, but the broad overall approach of it is something that you can be aware of, and it's something called newsjacking. So I think I have mentioned this before in passing, but basically newsjacking is where you are aware of what's already happening in the news and you jump on it. So it could be anything. It could be that there's some statistics that are out there around the rise of the amount of people who have quit their jobs. It could be that there's some new report around domestic abuse statistics. If any of those things are relevant to you and your business and your story, then it makes sense for you to jump on that and to come and have a conversation about it. So if there are topics that are very relevant to your personal story, to your journey, to your business, to the specialities that you speak about, then actually newsjacking and being aware of what's going on in the world is something that can really, really leverage your opportunities. The other thing is celebrity spot. So watch out to see what celebrities are doing. And if they're doing something that they're talking about, then again, that's something that you can jump onto. So that can be anything from celebrities, I don't know, moving house, to celebrities having babies, to celebrities moving jobs. Like, there's always an opportunity for you to actually think about how you relate that back to what you're up to and how you can have a conversation on the back of that kind of news agenda that they have created. So there's lots of things there to be mindful of. And Libby was basically saying, you know, look, really make sure that you jump on the opportunities that already exist, as well as doing your proactive pitching around targeting journalists with your more specific story. Okay, so that was in a little nutshell some of the insights that we got from the national media side of things. Now, we also invited a journalist from one of our local media, from a regional newspaper, to just to sort of bring her own take on what regional newspapers are looking for. So when you're trying to target your local press, they're often coming at it from a different perspective, and we just wanted to bring that to the party as well, so that if you want to start local and you don't want to go straight in with reaching out to national media, sometimes it can feel a little bit less scary. It can feel a little bit more doable. And again, she was super, super friendly and really made it feel easy and accessible to connect with her. So yeah, hopefully then that made everyone in the audience feel like, oh, this is not out of reach. This is something that actually I could do. So starting with her first tip, and it's an obvious one, but it is one that is important to recognise. She talked about the importance of being local. So local media want local people, and this is a massive advantage because you are local somewhere. So in your local media, you are local. You are their perfect audience. You are their perfect specimen to be used in their publications because you are relevant to them just by being local. So you already get a tick. So that's something that is powerful to remember. You know that actually the local media have to showcase local people. So with that, she was saying just make sure that you check the regions that publication covers. Because with a regional publication, actually it covers loads and loads of different little areas within the area. So it doesn't just cover the central area. It covers lots of other expansive areas in that region. So make sure that you are aware of actually the scope of media that cover where you are from, because it's quite likely that there's more than you would expect. So dig out your local media and play on the fact that you are a local business, you're a local mum, you're a local entrepreneur. Really, really milk the word local. Talk about if you grew up there, talk about if you went to school there, talk about if you went to university there, talk about if you got your first job there, talk about if you've lived there for 20 odd years. The more local you are, the more appealing you are. So really, really make the most of that as an opportunity. Okay, her next tip was about actually really dissecting the newspaper, the publication, and she was talking about being very targeted about who it is that you introduce yourself to. So this is something that we've spoken about before in terms of making sure that you are not just blanket sending your information out, and that you are targeting the right journalists within the right sections of the publications. So she was saying that actually you're more likely to get a feature piece in the weekend supplement of the paper than you are during the week, because there's more space, it's a different kind of content, it's got a different kind of vibe, and it just feels like it kind of fits a bit better some of the kinds of stories that you are going to want to share. So rather than just thinking, oh, I want to be in the business section, I'm trying to get a hold of the business editor, or I'm just going to send an email to the news desk. Actually, don't do that. Do a little bit more research, do a little bit more digging, and really get to know the publication and really start to think about where you could target, which element of the paper is going to be the right one for you, where there could potentially be an interview or a feature, rather than just the sort of straight newsy type content that they run. And so Saffron was saying that quite often that comes in the weekend supplements. So that was very useful to her. And the last point that Saffron shared was around keeping in touch and building relationships with your local media. So we kind of spoke about how actually a lot of people do feel nervous about making that contact, about making that connection. And they also feel a bit funny about keeping in touch on a regular basis because they kind of feel like they're bugging the journalist, or they feel like they're going to get offended, or they're going to kind of feel like they're being bombarded, or it's going to go against them if they keep sending them regular content. And she was saying actually, no, like quite often, they are super, super stretched. They are super, super busy, and actually they struggle to use all the content that they get sent. So don't take offense if your piece isn't used straight away. Don't take offense if they don't come back to you. Don't take offense if it just doesn't fit at that time. Keep in touch. Keep sending other things. Keep sending other ideas. Keep on their radar, because eventually an opportunity will come. So I think that was very kind of refreshing for people to hear, and encouraging for people to hear, because, this thought of actually, no, keep communicating with us, keep in touch. We want that, rather than, just assuming that they don't want that. I think that was a bit of a door opener. That was almost like an open invitation, which again, I think was really nice for the people in that room to feel like that barrier was removed of, oh my God, scary journalist. Like, if I send them this and they don't like it, then I'm going to be blacklisted. All of these things that run through our heads, where we build up journalists to be something that they're not quite often, and to have a really fresh sort of open conversation with these journalists on the panel who were saying, no, we're here to help you. Like, we actually genuinely do want to share your stories. You've got to make it easy for us to do that, but please do keep in touch, and, we'll do what we can. So I think that was a really lovely vibe, and something that was super, super important to happen to try and break down some of these barriers between the media and the rest of us. So in this episode, we have now talked about the power of letting people into your story. We've talked about actually the importance of stripping back some of the kind of marketing-y, superficial ways we may have of introducing ourselves, and actually being prepared to be vulnerable and to get under the skin of what matters to us and what makes us tick, to enable people to really connect. And then we've talked about actually, what the media need, what they need from you, what they're looking for, in terms of you being able to then use the press as an opportunity to showcase your story and your message. And I hope that's been interesting. I hope that's been useful. I absolutely know that the people in that room at Be Inspired found it incredibly powerful and really took away a lot of their fears. So that was fabulous, to see before my very eyes. So like I said, there actually is another event in September for Be Inspired at the end of September. And if you want to come and be in that room and have the chance to soak all of this up, then I will pop the link in so that you can absolutely do that. Now, next week, I think I'm going to carry on and talk about this a little bit further, because we also did have another fabulous guest at Be Inspired called Remel London, who I would like to talk to you about. And also, I would like to talk to you about some of the other speakers who were there and actually how they engage with their stories too, because I think you can learn a lot from how to make your business PRable when people have really identified their key angles, their key hooks, and really, really engaged a room with those. So I am going to come back to this, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more next week as well. But for now, I'm going to leave you there. And the last little line that I'm going to leave you with is one that I've said to you before, one that I no doubt will say to you again: the power of storytelling and not selling. This 100% cannot be underestimated. And if this is the only thing that you learn about PR, then you're going the right direction. So I'm going to leave you with that little last thought and get you to think about how much do you do with that in your own business, in your own marketing, in your own communications, not just whether you're doing press work, but generally in how you communicate with your audience. Are you storytelling, not selling? Because the power of that really is incredible, incredible, incredible. So I will leave you there, and I wish you a fabulous week, and I can't wait to come and share the rest of my insights with you next week. All right, guys, take care. Bye.
Thank you for listening to PR Powerhouse with me, Jo Swan. If you want to feel empowered and supported and excited about getting in the press, come and join us in our free community over on Facebook at PR You Can Do It. I would absolutely love to see you there so I can help you take those next steps to getting in the media.